He was locked in a cell. No cameras, no screaming fans, no flashing lights, just a concrete floor, a steel door, and a man who had once made $300 million in a single night, sitting in silence, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of gold trunks. The richest athlete on the planet, in jail. How does the highest paid fighter in the history of combat sports end up here? How does a man who retired 50-0, never once beaten in a professional ring, end up broken before he ever became money? This is not just a boxing story. This is a story about a boy who watched his own father shoot his mother's boyfriend right in front of him. A boy raised by a mother who battled addiction, in a house so poor that sometimes there was no food on the table. A boy who was told by almost everyone around him, even the people who loved him, that he would never make it out. Stay with me until the end, because what happened to this boy will change the way you see everything you think you know about Floyd Mayweather. Let's go back before the mansions, back before the jets, the diamonds, the TBE, the best ever, tattooed across his legacy, back to a small, cold house in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the winter of 1977. That's where Floyd Joy Mayweather Jr. was born, on February 24th. And from the very first breath, his life was already tangled in violence, poverty, and boxing. Three threads that would follow him for the rest of his life. His father, Floyd Mayweather Sr., was a professional boxer himself, a welterweight, who once shared the ring with the legendary Sugar Ray Leonard. But being the son of a boxer didn't mean safety. It didn't mean comfort. It meant something far more complicated. Floyd Sr. struggled with the same demons that haunted so many fighters: money problems, jealousy, and a temper that boiled over into violence. And his mother, Deborah Sinclair, was fighting her own war, a war against drug addiction that left her unable to properly care for her son during some of the most important years of his life. Picture this: a 2-year-old boy in his own home, watching his father shoot his mother's boyfriend in the leg during a violent altercation. That memory, that trauma, never left him. It became part of the foundation of who Floyd Mayweather would become: guarded, controlled, and obsessed with never being powerless again. By the time he was old enough to understand the world around him, Floyd already knew one truth: nobody was coming to save him. If he wanted a different life, he would have to fight for it, literally. And that's exactly what his family gave him. Boxing wasn't a hobby in the Mayweather household. It was survival. It was inheritance. His father trained him. His uncles, Jeff Mayweather, and the fiery, unpredictable Roger Mayweather, a 2-time world champion, shaped him. Roger, in particular, became like a second father, teaching young Floyd the defensive style that would one day make him nearly untouchable: the shoulder roll, the philosophy of hit and don't get hit. But greatness doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in chaos. When Floyd was still a child, his father was sent to prison on drug trafficking charges. Just like that, the man who was supposed to protect him was gone. His mother was still struggling. So young Floyd was passed around, living with relatives, moving from house to house, trying to find some kind of stability in a world that offered him none. Can you imagine being a child and not knowing which house you'll sleep in next week? Not knowing if there will be food when you get there? That instability could have destroyed him. For so many kids growing up the way Floyd did, in poverty, surrounded by addiction and incarceration, the story ends in tragedy: prison, the streets, an early grave. But Floyd found something to hold on to: the gym. While other kids his age were out on the streets of Grand Rapids, getting pulled into gangs, drugs, and violence, Floyd was in the gym, throwing punches at a heavy bag, sweat dripping down a face that hadn't even hit puberty yet. He wasn't just training his body, he was training his mind to survive. He has said, in later years, that boxing quite literally saved his life, that without it, he would have ended up exactly like so many people he grew up around, in prison or dead. By his teenage years, Floyd Mayweather was already turning heads in the amateur boxing world. He was fast, unnaturally fast, with reflexes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. He had an IQ for the sport that couldn't be taught, only sharpened. He went on to become a three-time National Golden Gloves champion, and in 1996, at just 19 years old, he represented the United States at the Atlanta Olympics. This is where curiosity really begins to build, because what happened at those Olympics still sparks controversy to this day. Floyd fought his way to the semifinals in the featherweight division. In a fight against Bulgaria's Serafim Todorov, most observers, including many boxing experts, believed Floyd clearly won. But the judges disagreed. Through a scoring system riddled with controversy that Olympic year, Floyd was awarded the loss. He walked away with only a bronze medal. He was furious. He believed, and many still believe, that he was robbed of gold. But here's the twist. That heartbreak became fuel. Floyd made a vow that day. He would never again let another person's decision determine his fate. If judges could take away what he had rightfully earned, then he would find a way to make victory so undeniable that no one could ever take it from him again. That single moment of injustice may be one of the most important turning points in his entire career. Because from that day forward, Floyd Mayweather stopped trusting judges, stopped trusting handshakes, and started building a legacy on one unshakable principle: control everything you possibly can. Later that year, he turned professional, and the boxing world had no idea what was about to hit it. He debuted on October 11, 1996, and picked up a first-round knockout. He started fast, calling himself Pretty Boy Floyd, young, cocky, dazzling, dancing around opponents like they were standing still. Over the next several years, Floyd tore through weight divisions: super featherweight, lightweight, light welterweight, welterweight, light middleweight. He didn't just win, he dominated, using the defensive mastery that frustrated and demoralized some of the most dangerous punchers in the world. But even as he climbed, the ghosts of his childhood followed him. Floyd struggled to build healthy relationships. He struggled with trust. And the same volatility that shaped his upbringing showed up in his personal life, leading to legal trouble that would eventually put him behind those prison walls we started this story with. In 2012, Floyd Mayweather pleaded guilty to a domestic violence charge involving the mother of 3 of his children, Josie Harris. He served time, about 2 months, in a Las Vegas jail. This is one of the darkest chapters of his story, and it's one that can't be skipped over, sanitized, or ignored, because it's part of who he really is, a man who achieved unimaginable success in the ring while carrying deep, unresolved pain outside of it. It's a sobering reminder. The same trauma that can build a champion can also leave permanent scars if it's never truly healed. And yet, in the middle of all this chaos, Floyd Mayweather's professional career kept climbing to heights that boxing had never seen before. He began calling himself Money Mayweather, and it wasn't just a nickname, it was a business philosophy. Floyd understood something most fighters never grasped. Boxing wasn't just about punches, it was about promotion, perception, power. He started his own promotional company, Mayweather Promotions, refusing to let others control his career or his paychecks the way so many fighters before him had been exploited. He studied the business side of the sport as intensely as he studied his opponent's jabs. Then came the fights that turned him from a boxing star into a global phenomenon. In 2007, he faced Oscar De La Hoya, the Golden Boy, in a fight that shattered pay-per-view records at the time. Floyd won by majority decision, and with that victory, he officially became the new face of boxing. He beat Ricky Hatton. He beat Juan Manuel Márquez. He beat Shane Mosley in a fight where he was actually hurt early on, buzzed by a right hand that would have finished a lesser fighter. But Floyd, ever the survivor, adjusted and shut the door for the rest of the fight. Every year, the hype grew. Every fight, the paycheck grew. And so did the persona, the private jets, the mansions, the mountains of cash he'd flash on social media, the diamond-encrusted watches. To his fans, he was living proof that a broken kid from Grand Rapids could conquer the entire world. To his critics, he was arrogant, obnoxious, unbearable. But love him or hate him, you could not ignore him. And then, in 2015, boxing witnessed the fight the entire world had been begging for nearly 6 years. Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao, two of the greatest fighters of their generation, finally colliding in the ring in Las Vegas. It became the highest-grossing pay-per-view fight in history at that point, generating over $600 million in revenue. Floyd won by unanimous decision, extending his undefeated record and cementing a rivalry that will be debated by boxing fans for generations. Some called it underwhelming. Some wanted more violence, more drama. But what they were witnessing, even if they didn't fully appreciate it in the moment, was pure defensive artistry, a masterclass in not getting hit, performed by a man who had spent his entire life learning that survival meant control. Then, in 2017, Floyd did something no one expected. He stepped out of retirement to fight a UFC superstar with zero professional boxing experience, Conor McGregor. The boxing world scoffed. "It's a joke," they said. "It's a money grab." Maybe it was. But it was also one of the most talked about sporting events of the decade. Floyd, nearly 40 years old, let McGregor throw everything he had in the early rounds. Then, like a predator who had simply been waiting, closed the show with a 10th round stoppage. 50 fights, 50 wins, 0 losses. Floyd Mayweather retired with a perfect professional record, 50-0, a feat that not even legends like Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Robinson could claim. He surpassed the legendary Rocky Marciano's undefeated mark, becoming, statistically, the most successful boxer in the history of the sport. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Numbers never do, because behind that perfect record was a man who, by his own admission, trusted almost no one. A man who kept his circle small because he had learned, from childhood, that people could hurt you, betray you, and take from you the moment you let your guard down. Floyd fathered several children, Koran, Zion, Jira, and Iana, known publicly as Yaya. He poured resources into them, determined to give them a childhood far more stable than the one he had. Whatever else can be said about him, those who know him say he is fiercely devoted as a father, trying, in his own way, to break the cycle that once broke him. And here's something most people don't know. Floyd has quietly donated millions of dollars to causes over the years, funding scholarships, supporting historically black colleges and universities, and making substantial donations following tragedies, including support efforts after devastating events like the Las Vegas mass shooting in 2017 near his adopted hometown. He rarely publicized these donations the way he publicized his cash-counting videos. The image of Money Mayweather flaunting wealth was calculated showmanship, a character built to sell tickets, but underneath the character was a man who understood, better than most, what it felt like to have nothing. Another lesser-known fact: Floyd never smoked, never drank alcohol, and never touched drugs, not once, in an industry and an upbringing surrounded by substance abuse. Having watched addiction destroy people he loved, he made an unshakable decision as a young man to never let it touch him. That discipline extended into every part of his life: his training, his diet, his business decisions. Some say it's the single biggest reason he was able to stay undefeated for over 2 decades in one of the most brutal sports on earth. Of course, no story about Floyd Mayweather is complete without confronting the controversy head-on, because his legacy isn't just about wins. Multiple domestic violence allegations followed him throughout his career, some resulting in charges, some settled outside the public eye. His trash-talking, his flaunting of wealth in the face of poverty and inequality, his open feuds with other athletes, all of it made him one of the most polarizing figures in sports history. Some saw a self-made king who clawed his way from nothing to becoming a billionaire. Others saw a deeply flawed man whose treatment of women overshadowed anything he ever did in the ring. Both of these things can be true at the same time, and that's what makes his story so uncomfortable and so human. Because Floyd Mayweather is not a fairy tale. He is not a clean, easy hero to root for. He is something far more complicated, a survivor of unimaginable trauma, who built an empire out of pain, who protected himself so fiercely that he sometimes hurt the people closest to him, who gave generously in private while performing excess in public, and who, through it all, never lost, not once, inside the one place where he always felt in control: the ring. So what is Floyd Mayweather's legacy, really? It's not just 50-0. It's not just the billions of dollars, or the diamond chains, or the viral cash-counting videos. His real legacy is proof, undeniable, inconvenient proof, that circumstances don't have to be destiny. That a boy who watched violence before he could walk, who was raised by addiction and incarceration and instability, could still master discipline so completely that he became statistically unbeatable in his profession. He turned a childhood trauma, being told no, being robbed at the Olympics, being abandoned, being poor, into fuel that never ran out. He weaponized control, because control was the one thing life never gave him as a child. And in the ring, for over 20 years, nobody, not one single opponent, could take that control away from him. That's the real story behind the best ever. Not just a boxer, a survivor who turned survival into a science. If there's one thing Floyd Mayweather's life teaches us, it's this: your beginning does not have to write your ending. The pain you're handed as a child does not have to become the pain you hand to the world, if you're willing to face it, channel it, and refuse, every single day, to let it defeat you. Floyd Mayweather was never undefeated because life was easy on him. He was undefeated because life was as hard on him as it possibly could be, and he refused to lose anyway. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel keep telling stories like this one. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're bringing you more untold true stories of the world's most legendary and most misunderstood icons. And drop a comment below. What part of Floyd Mayweather's story surprised you the most? Because his story isn't over. Legacies like this, they never really are.